Hello and welcome to the next edition of the BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on digital transformation strategy discussions. Stay with us now to learn how agile businesses are fending off disruption in favor of innovation. Our next cloud deployment options interview explores how hybrid cloud ecosystem players such as PwC and Hewlett Packard Enterprise are gearing up to use Azure Stack in the most auspicious way. That's the Microsoft Azure Stack private-public cloud continuum. We'll now learn what enterprises can do to make the most of hybrid cloud models and be ready to specifically look for Microsoft solutions for balancing the boundaries between public and private cloud deployments. Here to help us explore the newest approaches for successful hybrid IT, we're joined by Ro Antau. He's a partner at PwC. Welcome, Ro.
Thanks a lot, Dana. Thrilled to be here, and thanks for having me.
We're glad you're with us. We're also here with Ken Wand. He's Director of Cloud Solutions Marketing at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Welcome back, Ken.
Hi, Dana. Excited to be here with you again.
Thank you. Ro, what are some of the trends that are driving the adoption of hybrid models, specifically Azure Stack? Why are people really interested in doing this?
So that's a great question, Dana. So what we've observed in the last 18 months is that a lot of our clients are now aggressively pushing towards the public cloud. And in that journey, there are a couple of things that are becoming really loud and clear to them. Number one is that there will always be some sort of a private data center footprint. There are certain workloads that are not appropriate for the public cloud. There are certain workloads that perform better in the private data center. And so the first acknowledgement is there is going to be that private as well as the public side of how they deliver IT services. Now, that being said, they've got to start building the capabilities and the mechanisms to be able to manage these different environments seamlessly. And as they kind of go down this path, that's where we're seeing a lot of the traction and the focus. And the other trend in conjunction with that is in the public cloud space, we're seeing a lot of traction that Azure is making in the market, right? They've come strong. They've been aggressively going after the public cloud market, and being able to have that seamless environment between private and public and the Azure Stack is what's driving a lot of the demand we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're seeing that very similarly as well. What we do is we call that hybrid IT. And we talk about how customers need to find their right mix of private and public and managed services to fit their business. So they may put some services in a public cloud, some services in a private cloud, some in a managed cloud, and depending on their company strategy, they need to figure out which workloads go where. And so we've been having these conversations with many of our customers about how do you determine the right placement for these different workloads, taking into account things like security, performance, compliance, cost, and helping them evaluate their this hybrid IT environment that they now need to manage.
So let's get the best of private, the best of public, and have a pathway between them, perhaps one that's dynamic, that we can adjust as circumstances change, maybe even over time start automating it. So it's a really interesting subject. Ro, a lot of what people have used public cloud for are greenfield apps, starting in the cloud, developing in the cloud, deploying in the cloud. But there's also an interest in many enterprises about legacy applications and data sets. So is Azure Stack and hybrid cloud an opportunity for them to rethink where their older apps and data reside or should reside?
Absolutely. You know, when you kind of look at the broader market a lot of these businesses are competing in today, it's a very dynamic market, right? There are, today when you look at companies thinking about strategy, it's no longer the 5 and 10 year strategy. They are thinking about how to be relevant in the market this year, today, this quarter. That requires a lot of flexibility in their business model. That requires a lot of variability in their cost structure. And so when you kind of look at it from that viewpoint, where we're seeing a lot of clients look at the public cloud, is more than is the app just suitable for the public cloud, but also are they going to get certain cost advantages in terms of variability in that cost structure that they can take advantage of. And that's where we're seeing them look at the public cloud beyond, just applications, in terms of that are suitable for the public cloud.
Mm-hmm. We help a lot of companies think about, as with their traditional apps, where is the best place for them. And Very often that they don't want to restructure them, they don't want to rewrite them because they've already got an investment and they don't want to spend a lot of time refactoring them. So if you look at these traditional applications, a lot of times where they're dealing with data, if they're dealing with sensitive data, those things are better to put in a private cloud.
Yeah, and I just that's a great point. And I think with the Azure Stack, I think one of the great things about it is it gives the data center that public cloud experience, right? Where developers have the similar experience as they would in a public cloud. The only difference being you're now controlling the costs as well, right? So that's another big advantage we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that whole giving the developers the experience of the public cloud, but having, from the IT standpoint, providing the compliance, the control, the security of a private cloud, and allowing that application to be deployed in either a public or private cloud, depending on its requirements, is incredibly powerful. And there's no other environment out there that provides that API compatibility between private and public cloud like Azure Stack does.
No, clearly Microsoft is interested in recognizing that skill sets, platform affinity, due course and process are all really important. So if they're able to provide a private cloud and public cloud experience that's common to the folks that have been used to using Microsoft platforms and frameworks, that's a boon. But it's also important for companies to continue with the skills. Ro, am I mistaken, or commonality of skills and process not top of mind for many organizations?
Absolutely. I think there's always the risk when you have different environments having that swivel chair approach, right? You've got a certain set of skills and processes for your private data center. You've got a certain set of skills and processes to manage your public footprint. And I think one of the big problems and challenges this solves for is being able to drive more of that commonality across, right, where you have consistent set of processes, you've got a similar talent pool, you've got similar kind of training and awareness that you're trying to drive within the organization because you've got similar stacks on both ends. So.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. And we know that the biggest challenge to adopting new concepts is not the technology. It's really the people and process issues. So if you can address that, and which is what Azure Stack does, it makes it so much easier for enterprises to bring on new capabilities because they're sharing, they're leveraging the experience that they already have using Azure Public Cloud.
So many organizations are familiar with Microsoft Azure Stack. It's been a technical preview for quite some time. As it's hit the market, looking for that total solution, people and process approach, what is PwC bringing to the table to help organizations get the best value and advantage out of Azure Stack?
So just going back to a point that Ken made earlier in this discussion about hybrid IT, right? When you kind of look at IT really pivoting to more of that hybrid delivery mode, it's really a tectonic shift in IT's kind of operating model, their architecture, their culture, the roles and responsibilities, the fundamental value proposition of IT in the enterprise. So when we partner with Hewlett Packard Enterprise, helping organizations, drive through this transformation, one way we work with HPE is really in rethinking the operating model, understanding the new kind of roles and skills, being able to really apply some of these changes in the context of the business drivers that are leading it. And so that's one of the typical ways we work with HPE in this space.
Yeah, it's a great compliment. HPE really understands the technology, understands the infrastructure, combined with the business process, the higher level thinking and the strategy and knowledge that PwC has. It's a great partnership.
Well, attaining hybrid IT efficiency and doing it with security and control is not something you buy off the shelf. It's not a license. So it seems to me an ecosystem is essential. But how do organizations manage the ecosystem? Are there ways that you all are working together, HPE in this case, with PwC and with Microsoft, to make that consumption of an ecosystem solution much more attainable?
One of the things that we are doing is working with Microsoft on their partnerships so that we can look at all these companies that have their offerings that are running on Azure Public Cloud and ensuring that those are all available and supported in Azure Stack as well, running in the data center. We're spending a lot of time with Microsoft on their ecosystem to make sure those services, those companies, or their products are available on Azure Stack as well, fully supported on Azure Stack that's running on HP gear.
Yeah. They might not be concerned about the hardware, but they're concerned about the total value and the total solution. And if the hardware players aren't cooperating or with the service providers and with the cloud, then that's not going to work.
Exactly. It's I think of it like a washing machine. No one wants to own a washing machine, but everyone wants clean clothes. So it's kind of like the necessary evil. It's super important, but it's you just soon not have it.
I just don't know what to take to the dry cleaner or not, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and just to add to that, from a consulting standpoint, clients that no longer have the appetite for these 5-6 year transformations, right? Their businesses are changing at a much faster pace, and one of the ways we're working in the ecosystem, again, much like the deep and long-standing relationship we've had with Hewlett Packard Enterprise, we've also been working with Microsoft in that same context, and in a three-way fashion, we really kind of focused on being able to define accelerators to deploying these solutions, right? So codifying a lot of our experiences, the lessons learned, a deep understanding of both the public and the private stack to be able to accelerate value for our customers, because that's what they expect today.
Yeah, and one of the things, Ro, that you brought up is I think is very relevant here is these three-way relationships where the customers don't want to have to deal with all of these different vendors as different pieces of the stack or different value, delivering different aspects of the value chain. They expect us as vendors to be working together. So HPE, PwC, Microsoft, kind of all working together to make it easier for the customers to ultimately deliver the services they need to drive their business.
So speed to value, super important. Common solution, cooperation and collaboration, synergy among the partners, super important. But another part of this is doing it at low risk, because no one wants to be in a transition from a public to private or a full hybrid spectrum and then have performance issues, lost data, customers at the end of the process not happy. So PwC has been focused on risk and compliance and governance, trying to bring a better handle to control, basically end-to-end control. What is it that you can bring to this particular problem that is unique? And it seems to me that each enterprise is doing this new to themselves, but you've done it for a lot of others, and experience can be very powerful that way.
Absolutely. And, just going back to a comment I made, the shift to hybrid IT is a fundamental shift in governance models, in how you address certain risks, the emergence of new risks, new security challenges. And a lot of what we have been doing in this space has been helping the IT organizations accelerate that shift, that paradigm shift that they've got to make. And in that context, been working very closely with HPE to really understand what the requirements of that new world are going to look like, so that we can build solutions and bring solutions to the table that support some of those needs.
Yeah, I was going to say it's absolutely critical. This experience that PwC has to bring to the party is huge. We always come up with new technologies. Every few years you have something new, but it's that experience that PwC has to bring to the table that's incredibly helpful to our customer base.
And when you kind of look at governance, right, so quite often we think of governance more in terms of the steady state and the runtime, but there's this whole journey between getting from where they are today to that hybrid IT state and having the governing mechanisms around it so that they can do it in a way that doesn't expose their business to too much risk. There's always risk involved in these large-scale transformations, but how do you kind of manage and govern that process through getting to that hybrid IT state? And that's where we also spend a lot of time as we help clients through this transformation.
So for shops that are heavily Microsoft-focused, oriented shops, is there a way for them to master Azure Stack, people, process, and technology, that will then be a accelerant for them to go to a broader hybrid IT capability? I'm thinking maybe someday multi-cloud, and even being able to develop with DevOps and SecOps across a cloud continuum as sort of a core competency. So is Azure Stack for many companies a stepping stone to a wider hybrid capability, Ro?
Yeah, and I think in many cases it's inevitable. Like when you look at most organizations today, they have, and generally speaking, they have at least 2 public cloud providers they use. Generally speaking, they consume several SaaS applications. Generally speaking, they have multiple data center locations. And the role of IT now becomes really becoming that broker and integrator of multi-cloud environments, on-premise and, in the public cloud. And that's where we're seeing a lot of them evolve their management, practices, their processes, the talent to be able to abstract these different pools and focus on the business. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the talent development as well.
Yeah, we are seeing that as well as that this whole multi-cloud strategy is being implemented more and more. The challenge that organizations are having is that they have these multiple clouds, each which is managed by a different team or different technologies with different processes. So if there's a way to bring these together, there's huge value to the customer. And by bringing together, for example, Azure Stack and Azure together, and they may have multiple Azure Stack environments, perhaps in different data centers, in different countries, in different locales, it helps them align their processes to run much more efficiently and more effectively, and engaging with not only from an IT standpoint, but also from the developer standpoint, because they can use those common services to develop that application and deploy it in multiple places in the same way.
Well, and to add to that, I think what's making this whole environment even more complex these days is, a couple of years ago when we talked about multi-cloud, it was really the capability to either deploy in, one public cloud versus the other. A few years later, it kind of evolved into being able to port workloads seamlessly from one cloud to the other. Today, as we kind of look at the multi-cloud strategy that a lot of our clients are exploring, is within a given business workflow, depending on the unique characteristics of different parts of that business process, how do you leverage different clouds given the unique strengths and weaknesses of each of them, right? There might be portions of a business process that, to your point earlier, Ken, are highly confidential. You're dealing with a lot of compliance requirements. You may want to consume from an internal, private cloud. There are other parts of it that you're looking for, immense scale, deal with the peaks when that particular part of the business process get impacted. How do you kind of go bet with a public that has had a history with that? In the third case, it might be enterprise-grade kind of workloads, right? And so that's where we're seeing multi-cloud really kind of evolve into, where in one business process you could have multiple sources. And how does an IT organization really manage that in a seamless way?
Yeah, it really does seem inevitable that the choice of a configuration model for a cloud continuum will vary, but it could be one definition in one country or region, another definition in another country and region. There could even be contextual. The type of end user that's banging on the app might be a determinant as well. As the Internet of Things kicks in, we might be thinking about not just individuals, but machine-to-machine, app-to-app types of interaction. So quite a bit of complexity, but dealt with in such a way that the payoff could be monumental. Let's talk a little bit about, if you do hybrid cloud and hybrid IT well, what that could mean for your business in, say, 3 to 5 years, Ro.
So, clearly there is the agility aspect, right? Being able to seamlessly leverage these different clouds allows IT organizations to be much more nimble in how they respond to the business. From a cost standpoint, and this is actually a great example we had of a large-scale migration we're currently doing to the public cloud, and what the IT organization found was they consumed close to 70% of their migration budget for only 30% of the progress they made. And a large part of that was because, the minute you have your workload sitting on the public cloud, whether it is a dev workload or you're still kind of working your way through it, but technically it's not yet providing value, the clock's still ticking, right? And being able to allow for a hybrid environment where you do a lot of that development, get it ready, almost production ready, and then when you're ready to drive value from that application, that's when you move to a public cloud. That's, those are huge cost savings right there, right? And so clients that have managed to kind of bounce those two, paradigms well are the ones who are also seeing a lot of economic efficiencies.
Yeah, and I'd certainly reiterate that the most important thing that people see value in is that agility. The ability to respond much faster to competitive actions or to new changes in the market, the ability to bring applications out faster, to be able to update applications in months or sometimes even weeks rather than the 2 years that it used to take. It's that agility to allow people to move faster and to shift their their capabilities so much quicker than they've ever been able to do is the top reason why we're seeing people move into this hybrid model. The cost factor is also really critical as they look at whether they're doing CapEx or OpEx and private cloud or public cloud. One of the things that we've been doing at HPE is through this flexible capacity program is that we enable our customers who are getting hardware to run these private clouds to actually pay for it on a pay-as-you-go basis, which allows them to better align their usage, their cost to their usage. So taking that whole concept of pay-as-you-go that we've seen in the public cloud and bringing that into a private cloud environment.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point, and I think from a cost standpoint, there's the efficiency discussion, but we're also seeing in today's world, especially as you start depending on edge computing a lot more. I was talking to a CIO of a large park the other day, and his comment to me was, yeah, they would love to use the public cloud, but they cannot afford for any kind of latency or disruption in service, because that means he's got thousands of visitors and guests in his park stranded. His rides, because of the amount of dependency on technology, he can afford that kind of latency. And so part of it is also the revenue impact discussion, right? And using public cloud in a way that allows you to manage some of those risks in terms of that, analytical power and that computing power you need closer to the edge or closer to your internal systems.
Mm-hmm. So Microsoft Azure Stack is really reinforcing the power and capability of hybrid cloud models, but Azure Stack is going to be essentially the same for each individual enterprise. How they differentiate how they use and take advantage of a hybrid continuum will give them competitive advantages and give them a one-up in terms of skills. So it seems to me that, the continuum of an Azure Stack, of a hybrid cloud, is super important, but how you take advantage of that is going to be the key differentiator, and that's where an ecosystem solutions approach can be a huge benefit. Let's look at a little bit before we sign off what comes next. Well, what might we be talking about a year from now when we think about Microsoft Azure Stack in the market and the impact of hybrid cloud on businesses? Ken?
I think what you'll see is organizations shifting from this world of using multiple clouds and have different applications or services through clouds to having an environment where a service may be based on multiple clouds. With the new cloud-native applications, you'll be running different aspects of that service in different locations based on what are the requirements of that particular microservice. So a service may be partially running in Azure, part of it may be running in Azure Stack. So you'll certainly see that as a kind of break this boundary of private cloud versus public cloud, and think of it as a continuum, if you will, of different environments to be able to support whatever application that they need.
Mm-hmm. Ro, as people get more into the weeds with hybrid cloud, maybe using Azure Stack, what do you think the change will be? How will the market adjust when this familiarity gets really going?
Well, I completely agree with Ken in terms of how organizations are going to evolve their architecture. PwC, we have this term called the configurable enterprise, right, which essentially focuses on how does the IT organization consume services from all these different sources to be able to ultimately solve a business problem. To that point, I'll say that where we're seeing the market go, the kind of trends we're seeing, the traction we're seeing in the hybrid IT space, the adoption of that continuum, and one of the big pressures we're going to see a lot of IT organizations face is how are they going to evolve their ways of working, their operating model to be successful in that new world, and that's what we're seeing, where we're seeing CIOs, at least especially the forward-thinking ones, start to really ask that question. We're going to see in the next 12 months, we're going to see a lot more pressure being faced in that space.
Mm-hmm. Well, after all, these are still early days of hybrid cloud and hybrid IT. Before we sign off, how should an organization that might not yet be deep into this prepare themselves? Are there some operations, culture, skills? How might you want to be in a good position to take advantage of this when you do take the plunge? Ken?
Well, there's a couple things that we recommend to our customers as they're heading down this journey. One of the things is that we offer a workshop where we'll sit down with the customer and think through what is their company strategy, what is their IT strategy, and how does that relate or map to the infrastructure that they need in order to be successful, right? And to make that connection between the value they want to offer as a company, as a business, to the infrastructure, and to put that plan in place so that they can see that direct linkage. So that workshop is one of the things that we help a lot of customers with. We also have innovation centers that we've built out with Microsoft, where customers can come in and experience Azure Stack firsthand. They can see the latest versions of Azure Stack. They can see the hardware. They can meet with experts. We bring partners in, such as with PwC, to have that conversation in these innovation centers so that we can have those deep conversations with experts.
Ro, how to get ready when you're wanting to take the plunge but making the best and most of it?
Well, so this is, I think we're in a stage right now where these transformations can no longer be done to the IT organization. The IT organization has to come along this journey. And what we've seen is, especially in the early stages, is running pilots, right? Being able to involve, the developers, the infrastructure architects, the operations folks in pilot workloads, and have them manage it going forward in that new model, right? And those are, that you want to kind of create a bit of that, as from a top-down perspective, certainly being able to tie, where is this add most value to our business, but from a grassroots efforts, also create a set of champions within the trenches that are going to be able to manage this new environment going forward. And combining those two efforts, we've seen have been very successful for organizations who have embarked on this journey.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like good advice. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been exploring how hybrid cloud ecosystem players such as PwC and HPE are gearing up to take the most advantage of Microsoft Azure Stack and help enterprise organizations gear up and proceed through this continuum of hybrid cloud well. And we've learned how enterprises can do that by taking on more of a process, people, and technology perspective when it comes to hybrid IT. So please join me in thanking our guests. We've been here with Ro Antau. He's partner at PwC. Thank you, Ro.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
And we've also been here with Ken Wan, Director of Cloud Solutions Marketing at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Danny. It's been great.
And a big thank you as well to our audience for joining us for this BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer Digital Transformation Success Story discussion. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of Hewlett Packard Enterprise sponsored interviews. Thanks again for listening, and pass this along to your IT community, and do come back next time.